close your eyes for a moment and picture the kitchen from your childhood. The clatter of enamel bowls, the soft ticking of a wind-up timer, the smell of cinnamon and hot biscuits floating through the air. There was something magical about Grandma's kitchen. Everything had a purpose, and everything had a story. Back then, folks didn't rely on fancy electronics or smart devices. They had tools that got the job done, made of metal, wood, and good old know-how. Some of those gadgets may seem strange to us now, even downright unnecessary. But for our grandparents, they were everyday essentials. Today, we're flipping back through the pages of history and looking at 10 kitchen gadgets your grandma swore by, but nobody uses today. From butter molds to cranky egg beaters, each one tells a story about a simpler time, when meals were made from scratch and every stain on an apron meant something delicious was coming. 1. Butter molds, fancy pats for fancy guests. Back before butter came in neat little paper-wrapped sticks, Grandma made it herself and made it look good. Enter the butter mold, a wooden or ceramic stamp used to press homemade butter into charming little blocks, often decorated with flowers, wheat stalks, or even family initials. In farm kitchens, this wasn't just for show. Butter molds made it easier to portion and store butter, especially before refrigeration. If Grandma had guests coming over, you can bet she reached for her prettiest mold. Setting out those decorated pats was like putting on her Sunday best, but for the table. Why did it disappear? Well, once store-bought butter became the norm, butter molds started gathering dust. These days, you'll find them at antique shops more often than in kitchens. But for those who remember, they bring back the taste and beauty of homemade pride. 2. Hand-crank egg beaters, arm day in disguise. Long before the electric mixer hummed on countertops, there was the hand-crank egg beater, a little gadget with spinning metal blades and a handle that gave your forearm quite the workout. Grandma didn't mind. She'd whip up eggs for a cake or meringue with smooth, practiced rhythm. The whir of the gears and the steady motion were like a kitchen lullaby. And yes, she always beat those eggs to stiff peaks without breaking a sweat. The egg beater faded from kitchens as electric mixers took over in the mid-20th century. Today, we press a button and it's done. But the old hand-crank beaters still sit in some drawers, a reminder of a time when the kitchen was powered by elbow grease and heart. 3. Metal ice cube trays, clink, crack, repeat. If you ever heard a sharp crack echo through the kitchen and then saw Grandma wrestling with a silver tray, you know the glory of metal ice cube trays. These trays had a lever that you lifted to break the frozen cubes free, sometimes with a stubborn clink and a loud pop. Before automatic ice makers, this was the standard way to chill a summer lemonade. And though the tray sometimes stuck to your fingers or made a screeching sound that could wake the dog, there was something oddly satisfying about freeing those cubes yourself. Plastic trays and then refrigerator ice dispensers made these metal classics obsolete. But ask anyone who used them. The cubes were colder, crunchier, and somehow just tasted better. 4. Flour sifters, a cloud of perfection. Grandma didn't just dump flour into her dough. Oh no, she sifted it through a metal sifter with a crank or trigger, turning clumpy powder into a soft, fluffy cloud. This wasn't just about texture, it was about love. A proper sifter made sure the flour was aerated, lump-free, and evenly mixed with baking powder or spices. For biscuits, pies, or cakes, Grandma knew a good sifting made all the difference. Why did it vanish? Modern flour is pre-sifted, and most of us are in too much of a rush. But for old-timers, the gentle whisper of flour falling through wire mesh brings back memories of slow Sundays and warm, rising bread. 5. Grease cans where bacon magic lived. In Grandma's kitchen, bacon grease wasn't tossed, it was treasured. Sitting proudly on the stove was a grease can, often with a strainer lid. After frying, the hot drippings went in. Later, they'd come out again to flavor beans, cornbread, or even fried eggs. This little can was a secret weapon. It held smoky, salty flavor in every spoonful. And it was practical, nothing wasted. Food was sacred, and bacon grease was gold. Why did it go away? Health trends warned against animal fats, and non-stick pans changed cooking habits. but many Southerners and traditional cooks still swear by it. One sniff of bacon-fried potatoes, and you'll understand why. 6. Jelly strainer bags, the great drip show. Making jelly wasn't just a recipe, it was a ritual. Grandma would pour her cooked fruit into a jelly strainer bag, usually made of fine muslin, and let it hang above a bowl. For hours, the juice would drip, drip, drip until it was crystal clear and ready for boiling. This wasn't fast, but it was perfect. No pulp, no seeds, just pure fruit flavor. Kids would peek under the bag, eyes wide with wonder, like watching a science experiment sweeten itself. These days, most folks buy jelly in jars. But for anyone who watched Grandma work with patience and pride, the memory of that hanging bag and the smell of summer berries never fades. 7. Pie birds, the little guardian in your crust. Tucked into the center of a bubbling pie, pie birds looked like tiny ceramic sentinels. But they weren't just cute. They vented steam during baking, keeping the filling from boiling over and the crust from getting soggy. Grandma knew that pie wasn't just dessert. It was comfort, celebration, and art. She used pie birds to make sure her crust stayed flaky and beautiful. Some families even passed down favorite birds like heirlooms. Why do they vanish? Modern ovens are more consistent, and newer pie pans come vented. But pie birds still hold a special charm. If you've ever seen one peeking out a golden crust, you know it's not just a tool, it's a memory. 8. Toast racks, breakfast with a side of elegance. Before toasters popped slices into the air, toast was often made under the broiler and served upright in a toast rack. These elegant metal holders kept slices crisp by letting air flow around them. No more soggy bottoms. Toast racks were common in well-set tables, especially for Sunday breakfast or when company came over. They felt fancy, even if all you had was butter and jam. As electric toasters became common and breakfast got faster, toast racks became decorative items or vanished entirely. But there's something lovely about the idea of slowing down, setting the table, and enjoying warm toast with care. 9. Mouli graters. Turn the handle, make it rain. Before food processors and microplanes, there was the Mouli grater, a handheld rotary grater with a crank on the side. Need cheese? Turn the handle. Nuts? Done. Hard-boiled eggs? No problem. Grandma loved her Mouli. It was fast, easy to clean, and didn't require electricity. The rhythmic gur-gur-gur of the handle was a familiar kitchen sound, like a lullaby before dinner. Mouli faded out with the rise of food processors and pre-shredded everything. But for those who remember, using one feels like holding a piece of the past, sturdy, simple, and full of flavor. 10. Potato mashers, the grandma's workout routine. The manual potato masher, a simple, heavy-duty tool with a zigzag wire or flat disc, was grandma's go-to for perfect mashed potatoes. No cords, no buttons, just a pot, some butter, and pure muscle. It took time and strength, but the result was rustic perfection. A few lumps, sure, but they were real. Each mash felt personal, like grandma was putting herself into the dish. Electric mashers and blenders made it faster, but sometimes too smooth, almost gluey. The old masher made potatoes that tasted like love, not machinery. And when the meal was done, that masher hung back on the wall, quiet and proud, waiting for the next Sunday supper. Grandma's kitchen was more than just a place to cook. It was a place where time slowed down, stories were shared, and tools had soul. Sure, we've got shiny gadgets today, but sometimes it's the old ones that carry the most warmth. Which of these gadgets do you remember? Did your grandma have a butter mold or maybe a squeaky Mouli grater? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your kitchen memories. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that little bell so you don't miss our next story. Until then, keep the memories alive and maybe dust off that potato masher for old time's sake. This is History Rewind, where the past always has a seat at the table.